Hi, my name is Jeffro, and this is Digital Dominance, the podcast for service-based small business owners who are ready to seize the recognition and growth that their company deserves. You've worked hard to build a business you're proud of. Now it's time for Digital Domination. Welcome back to Digital Dominance. Today, we're diving into the world of business strategy and digital marketing with a seasoned expert who brings a wealth of experience and wisdom to the table. You know, you can have all the tips and tricks in the world, but if you don't have the right mindset and you don't take consistent action in the right direction, then you're never going to grow. So while you should definitely still learn as much as possible about digital marketing and all these different things, you should never neglect your own personal development. My guest today is Adam Hurd. He is the president of a successful financial planning firm in New York. He's vice chairman of the New York Advisory Group, and he even sits on the Small Business Advisory Council for the United States Congress. Now, in this episode, we will explore Adam's unique perspective on simplifying business operations, the power of focused time blocks like the Power Hour, and the evolving landscape of digital marketing in the business world. So with all that said, let's dive into the conversation. Welcome to the show, Adam.
Thanks so much, Jeffro. Appreciate you having me on. It's been a pleasure to get to know you over the beginning of this year. I really like what you're doing with your podcast. Dominating in any realm is very, very important. But the digital dominance is so ubiquitous right now in everything, in every business, in every life, that it's great that you're providing a resource that can truly help people to understand some of the inner workings, like we'll talk about today, some of the mindsets. But I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for being here. And I like that you brought that up because I do think a lot of people shy away from dominating. Like it almost has a negative connotation. And I was thinking about that when we came up with the name of the podcast, but I agree it's important because it takes a lot of intentional effort to get to that point. And the goal is not to make other people feel bad. It's that's kind of what it takes if you want to succeed in any particular, lane or industry, whatever you're trying to do. So thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah, you want to be the absolute best in anything that you do. Like you don't have to be better than your competitor, but you want to live up to your best potential. And if you're not dominating compared to what your potential is, then what's the purpose of doing it, right?
Exactly. I recently was reminded of the quote says, the way you do anything is how you do everything, right?
That's correct.
If you're going to do something halfway, well, don't be surprised when you're not following through on the business stuff and not getting to the levels that you say you want to reach. So let's kind of, continue in that path here. So Adam, there's many courses and YouTube videos and podcasts that teach us how to do things, right? But a lot of people still struggle with the application of this knowledge. So what do you attribute that to?
Well, it's a really tough thing. Procrastination is one of the worst diseases we all have, right? It's you want to do these things. You should do these things. You know the benefit that will come out of doing them, but you can't actually get to start doing them. And where does really procrastination stem from? It's a fear, right? It's a fear of the unknown. It's maybe I don't have the competency to do that. I might fail if I go out and try to accomplish this thing, and we don't really get started. And the key thing to anything you're going to do in your life, whether it's business, being a parent, playing a sport, is you have to start. And when you start, you must realize this one thing. You're going to suck. It's okay to be really bad in the beginning. We all are, right? When I started this business 24 years ago, and I started my coaching business 2 years ago, Atomic Business Coaching with my partner, Tom, I was not a coach 2 years ago. I have done financial planning. I have been on boards. I've done all those other things. But coaching, I was not a coach. I was pretty bad at it at the beginning. I knew how to give advice. I knew how to give recommendations. I knew how to communicate with people. But coaching as a discipline, I had to learn how to do that. Now, when people looked at me like, wow, you must have been doing this your whole life, because I was really good at it. Okay. But compared to how good I was at it in other realms like financial planning, I was not as good as I knew I could be. So outside, it looked like, wow, this guy's incredible. Internally, I'm like, oh my God, I suck. I'm so bad at this. Like, I really got to improve. So it's our own inner demon that we usually have to confront. You probably are way better at what you do than someone who doesn't know anything about what you do. And if you come into the confidence of like, hey, I'm okay at this, but I'm probably not where I want to be. The goal is that you get uncomfortable being comfortable. I'm sorry, I reversed that. You get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Right.
Okay. You get comfortable being uncomfortable. And what uncomfort really is you're learning, right? So as you're learning, you're going to fail. I always use this statistic all the time of if you look at baseball in the United States, to be in the Hall of Fame as a hitter, your batting average is 300. Okay. And what that means is 30% of the time you got a hit. Well, what does that really mean, Jeffro? It means you failed 70% of the time.
Yeah.
So to be at the top of the top, the Hall of Fame in the Major League Baseball, you're going to fail 70% of the time. Well, if you can go into that, you can overcome the procrastination because you're not setting that bar so high. If the bar is like, hey, I'm supposed to fail today, you'll probably be more likely to do it.
Right.
So that's one of the biggest obstacles and mindsets that I see with anybody in any realm, business, being a parent, starting a sport, anything like that.
Well, I think, we tell our kids if they're starting a new sport, the same thing. Like, hey, it's okay. You're new, you're learning, just get up, keep trying, and you'll get better. Right. But at some point, we stop giving ourselves that same permission to fail and be bad. And so then we kind of just stop making progress. So, another thing I wanted to ask you about was this concept of believe, behave, become. Right. And obviously that ties into what we're talking about, but it also applies to business because if you're believing the wrong things, you're going to hold yourself back. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so this is our methodology of how we do our coaching is it's believe. You have to believe in the thing that you want to accomplish, right? So let's say I decided to go in your space and I believe I'm going to dominate digitally in all the things that I'm doing. Well, I have to truly believe like I have the ability to do that. If you're coming into it and saying like, there's no way, I'm not going to be good, all this negative talk and like putting yourself down. And if you don't believe that I can actually be this, well, then how can you go and execute upon it? But the key is belief is kind of easy. It's easy to say, hey, I'm going to do $1 million in business this year, or I'm going to quit my job and go start my business. It's easy to believe that and tell yourself that story. The very difficult part is behaving. Okay. What we teach people to do is once you have that belief, now you have to start behaving. But how do you do that if you never did it before, right? Well, most people are much smarter than they give themselves credit for. So if I asked you, Jeffro, how would you start if you believed you're a rock star business coach, okay? I'm a business coach. Well, what you would do is you would ask yourself, well, what does a rock star business coach do? So I'll play along. If you play along with me, we'll try it out. So in your opinion, not what the experts say, not what you saw on a YouTube university or you read in a book, in your opinion, what would a really great business coach do?
Well, they'd probably meet with their client and understand where they're at, where they feel they're stuck and what they're trying to accomplish. And then based on that information, then kind of put together a plan that's going to work for them and give them recommendations, figure out a strategy, check-ins, the steps that they need to take to achieve that goal. But it won't be a cookie cutter. It'll be customized.
Very well done. Anyone who's watching, listening, this was not scripted. I threw that upon him, and you see how much he knew about what it takes. Well, you can ask yourself that same question. Once you know the belief, well, what would that person do? If now, Jeffro, you went and wrote that down and just did that, you would become an excellent coach. And this is what we struggle with over and over again is we think like we have to go pay for all these courses and learn this thing. It's the behaviors. It's the actions of doing things that actually allow you to become what you believe you are. And that goes back to what we were talking about before, that procrastination, that fear. Well, the fear really just stems from, I don't know what I'm doing. It's okay. But if you behave like you think that belief is, you will start to learn more information. You will get proof, evidence that this is or is not the way to do it. And once you learn it is the way to do it, you do more of that. Once you learn it is not the way to do it, you ask yourself the question again. So I tried doing all the things that Jeffro said and it didn't work. What else would they try? And you will already have an answer. Now, if you want to expedite this process, you can hire people like coaches. You can hire someone like Jeffro to help you along with all the digital aspects that you do in for business owners. You can hire those people, but you don't need that to get started. You just have to start. And then you can figure out where you need the help and hire towards that.
Yeah, and I think there's, in a lot of realms, you kind of need permission to do certain things. So, like, you can't drive a car until you have a driver's license, right? And that's an external validation that yes, you know what you're doing, you're allowed to be here. And we look at certificates, degrees. If I'm going to go to plumbing school, get my diploma, or whatever it is, I'm waiting for someone to say, "Okay, you're good enough. Now go do it." And this concept of just do it and then you'll be good enough, I think is just hard for a lot of people because it feels almost wrong in some way.
Yeah, we've been trained to think it's wrong. We've been trained through schooling that you have to know exactly what to do and not get it wrong. You have to pass the test before you're able to go and do that. But it starts even before this. The belief, if let's use the driving a car example, okay? Because everyone, most of your listeners probably have gone through this, so they can relate to it, or they have a child that's about to go through it. Well, if you want to drive the car, you need the license, right? Okay. Well, so if you said, I believe I'm the type of person that can go drive a car. Well, I don't have my license. I can't do it. Most people stop there. Okay. Well, then what you should do is, well, what would a person who wants to drive a car do? Well, they have to get their learner's permit. Okay, well, what does a person who gets their learner's permit do? Well, they have to go apply for a class. Well, what does a person who needs to go apply for a class do? Well, they ask mom and dad, can you sign me up for the class? Then it's off your shoulders and it's just having them do that thing. So if we reverse engineer and go really deep instead of go wide, what a lot of people do is they go wide. They say, well, I can't get the certificate, so what else can I do? Well, I'll just hire an Uber driver to get me around. Well, if you go deep on anything and start asking more questions of yourself, or work with someone like myself and my partner Tom to help you answer those questions, you can get to the behavior that needs to take place to go one step ahead. You can't jump from what you want to do to your goal instantly. There are many, many efforts that need to happen along that route. You've probably heard this cliche before. It only takes a decade to be an overnight success.
Yep.
Well, that's very true because there's a lot of things that need to take place between now and success. Well, if you want to get your driver's license, there's a lot of things that need to take place. But if you ask those questions, you can figure out the steps that need to happen. You may not know how to drive the car, but you can figure out what you need to do in order to learn how to drive the car. And that's the emphasis here, is if you just start asking yourself these very simple questions, you can get the answers so you can start doing the behavior and it'll become what you believe you are.
Yeah, and I think one more piece of it is that you need to believe that it's worth doing and going through those 10 years or whatever steps it takes, those classes. Because if you don't think it's worth it, then you will just say, I can just take the bus. Like, I don't need to get the driver's license, right? That works. It solves the problem. But if you have a...
Let me touch on that for a second, because you have to believe it.
Right.
Okay? Many times is your mom believed it, or your wife believed it, or society believed it, or your friends doing something and you believe, hey, I need to do this thing. If you don't have that belief, you will never, ever behave the way that you need to become it. And here's also, to go back to procrastination, where a lot of procrastination also comes from. It's not really the fear. It's just, it's something that you know needs to get done, but you're not the guy to do it. Right? It's like, I know this needs to get done, but I can find a who can do it instead of how to do it. Okay, there's a great book by Dan Sullivan called Who, Not How. That's the whole philosophy, is you don't have to do everything. You can find these who's to do things instead of let me figure out how to do it. But what you have to recognize is, what does it take to do this? And if you don't believe that, if it's someone else's belief, you will never carry it out and waste many, many, many years trying to do something that you would become an idea of someone else, not you.
Right. And sometimes there's other beliefs that get in the way, right? So let's say I do believe I can do this and it makes sense to do this. But if I believe that it's, morally wrong to make over a certain amount of money, then I'm going to have these conflicting beliefs in my head, and that's going to trip me up. Even if I won't be able to put my finger on it maybe, and I'll think I'm trying and doing it, but I'll keep, procrastinating or whatever.
That's right. So, with that is, it's okay to have your moral standings. We have a book called The Atomic Game Changer over here, and that is the 9 principles that we believe any business owner and even any person needs to have and embody in order to have freedom and success in their life, right? These 9 principles are just cores. They're standards that you have to have. In your life, you have to have standards. And if you feel that it's morally wrong to make over a certain amount of money, then live your life that way. Don't live somebody else's life. We have something called Project 2740. It's a community-based coaching program where we help people to become the CEO of their life and their business. The reason it's called 2740 is we help you to gain the skills, mindset, understanding, and tactics to generate $2,740 per day. That is $1 million if you calculate it over the course of the year. The reason we do that is, if this is a Brian Tracy quote, for those of you who don't know, he's a great motivational speaker and author, and he has a saying that says, the first million is very hard to make, but the second million is inevitable. And the thing that comes behind that is, we teach people to be the type of person that can generate the $1 million. Whether or not you generate it is another story. But you have to have these skill sets in order to do that. And if you don't want to generate that, you still should have the skill sets to be able to do that. And then you just hit your bar wherever that is. If you want to make 300,000, or how about this? What if you do want to make $1 million and you learn that you can and you keep 300 and you give $700,000 away to help other people? There are ways that you can use your talents, skill sets, and every business idea or even having a job to change the world. But you have to have your standards first in order to achieve that.
Right. So let's go from there, let's continue focusing on the business, right? Like you've mentioned that business is simple, it's just not easy. Now, part of it is kind of what we're talking about, but I do think there's some people who might disagree with that statement anyways, right? They might feel that business can be quite complicated because there's so much that can go into it. So what would you say to those folks?
Yeah, so we hear that all the time, right? It's a constant. That is our philosophy at Atomic Business Coaching. It's business and life are simple. It's just not easy. And what happens is, if you overcomplicate it in the beginning, it's already going to be difficult. Okay, if you overcomplicate it, it will become impossible. There are too many variables that come into play for you to truly assess what worked and what didn't. What do I like? What am I not? What don't I like? What am I competent at? What do I need to delegate? It becomes this analysis paralysis. You're constantly looking at things over and over again, and you're not taking any action. And the reason Believe, Behave, Become is our methodology, our process, is because the behavior is the most important thing. And when you make things very complex and not simple, you can't take the action necessary to become anything, because you're giving a little bit to this and a little bit to that, and I'll procrastinate over here because I don't know what I'm doing. And it's you can start very simply. Will it get more complex over time? Yes, but not because you started that way, because it became that way. And as things become more and more complex, it's not you that does it all. That's what we have teams for. That's what we have staff for. That's what we have support for. The business itself as an entity can be extremely complex, but whatever your role and responsibilities are inside of that business has to be simple in order for you to execute on it.
That makes sense. You got to break it into those smaller pieces. Otherwise, it's just, you can't get your hands around it.
Correct.
So what about the concept of power hour? Just focus, trying to get stuff done, focus on that behavior like you talked about. But how does that work in practice, especially, for a busy service business owner who feels like he's always got to have their phone on? How do you actually do that?
Yeah, Power Hour is one of my absolute favorite creations I've ever made. I've been doing an iteration of this since 2009 with teams that I have working for me. And now I help small business owners, new business owners, and producers to actually go out and execute on this. And really what it's about is the end goal is sales, okay? Too many people start and they focus on sales. I have to make sales. I have to get clients. I have to make money. That's great. But just like I said before, you have to know all the steps it takes to get there. And there's 3 steps that every person in business or in sales or in production needs to do every single day. Not some days, not once a week, every single day in order to be successful. It's branding, marketing, and relationship building. In our Power Hour, what we do is we break down 3 different segments, one for branding, one for marketing, and one for Power Hour. And all of you listening or watching this can do this on your own. You don't need to come into our course. It's a very simple tactic. And actually, Jeffro, I have a free course on YouTube that we could put a link in there and anybody could watch more detailed explanation on this for themselves for free. It's like a 5-course module on YouTube. So what this basically comes down to is I try to simplify everything and even the definitions of what we do. So most people overcomplicate what branding is. Many people think branding is their logo or it's their personal brand or it's this. Really what branding is, in my definition, I'm not saying I'm accurate. Seth Godin would kill me on this, but what it really is it's who you are and what you do. It's a very simple concept. You have to tell people who you are and what you do. So in our Power Hour, we spend 20 to 15 minutes actually going out there and telling people who you are and what you do. It's a novel concept, right? No, this is something we do every single day. It's just, are you hyper focused on, in this time frame, all I'm going to do is tell people who I am and what I do. And the intention behind this is you don't tell them who you are and what you do and say, hey, by the way, I'd like you to buy my stuff. You just tell them who you are and what you do. You allow for that to be just branding, because when we overcomplicate communication with our prospective clients or customers, they don't know what to do next. If you're just trying to explain who you are and what you do, and you tell them this and you tell them that, they don't know what to think anymore. And they're like, I can't even relate to you. There's no connection. I'm done. So branding is just telling people who you are and what you do. I'm Adam Hurd. I'm a business coach. That's all you need to tell somebody. So who are you and what do you do, Jeffro?
My name's Jeffro, and I'm ridding the world of terrible websites.
That's it. Not, and I'd like to meet with you, and I have a great product for you, and how, what's your life like, and how's it going on LinkedIn? No. Just who I am and what I do. What will happen if I sent you a message or called you on the phone or sent you an email telling you who I am and what I do? What will happen is they'll probably have a response or there'll be nothing. It's really only two options, response or nothing. Well, if there's a response, then you move to the next step, whatever that is. If there's nothing, you can follow up with another section, relationship building or marketing. Marketing, in our definition, is also very simple. It's asking for the opportunity to pitch, not building a relationship, not telling them who you are and what you do, and not selling. Most people conflate marketing and selling. Mm-hmm. Marketing is saying, hi, Jeffro, I have a great opportunity of something I think is a good fit for you, and I'd love to speak to you for 20 minutes about that. Here's a link. We could schedule a time. That's it. I'm asking for an opportunity to pitch you, not here's my service, here's why you should buy it, here's the great things, here's the cost, here's the link, I'm already confused. When we market, we are setting up appointments or opportunities to pitch somebody because there's no better way for you to do that than with the person when they've agreed upon, you can pitch me, okay? Nobody wants to be pitch slapped. That's a great word going around social media right now, right? And it's like, no. Get permission first. Hey, can I pitch you? I'd like the opportunity to do that. So we spend 20 minutes doing that, focusing on just asking people for the opportunity to pitch. Now, if you didn't previously tell them who you are and what you do, it would kind of be a waste, right? What would be the point of that? They're like, well, who are you? What do you do? So you might want to start there. And if you don't have some kind of relationship with them, they'd be like, whoa, I don't even know who you are, pal. Like, I don't even know what's this all about. So relationship building is simply, instead of asking for something, it's giving. It's saying, hey, Jeffro, thanks so much for having me on your podcast today. It was a really great time. I appreciate that you invited me on. That's it. No intention, no getting anything back. Or it's saying, hey, Jeffro, I recently saw your post on LinkedIn. Really inspiring, man. I'm very grateful that you're putting stuff like that out there. That's it. Thanking them, encouraging them, recognizing that you're interested in their life or asking them questions so you can learn more about them. That is building a relationship.
Right.
Now, these don't go in any sequential order. If you build a relationship, then maybe you tell them who you are and what you do. Or maybe you told them who you are and what you do, and now you build a relationship. Okay? So that's the whole idea. What this is all funneling down to is doing the sale. Okay? So that's what we're really trying to do in business, is get to that point. And the overarching theme of the Power Hour is if we do this each and every day, our opportunities are compounding. So if I tell you today who I am and what I do, and tomorrow I build a relationship, and the next day I build more relationship, and then I tell you something else of who I am and what I do because I do a variety of things. And then we find out, there's a reason for me to ask you for the opportunity to pitch. That compounds. Each day I'll have more communication with you and more reasons to go back and do prospecting. That's what this all comes down to. We're all trying to get leads. We're all trying to get business. We're all trying to make sales and have revenue.
Yes.
This is a very simple way of doing this, but the only key to it is consistency. So if you're unable to do a power hour, do a power 5 minutes. Spend 2 minutes on each of those things and do that. The key is to do it consistently on a daily basis. It doesn't matter the quantity of how much you do it. So in the beginning, anyone listening to this, just try it today. Try spending 2 minutes on each of those things and do that the entire week. 2 minutes today, 2 minutes tomorrow. Do that for 5 days in a row. See what comes out of it. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised on how genuine those communications are and how effective they are at getting you to what you really want.
Yeah. And I thank you for simplifying that process and making it, it's really easy, guys. Like you said, it doesn't mean, some days you'll be really busy and you're like, oh man, I got to do that. Like that maybe is the hard part for you, is scheduling it and sticking to it, that consistency piece. But you have to make it that priority, like we were talking about. You have to believe it's important and it's going to make a difference so that you stick with it, so that you get better at it, so that you start seeing the results from doing it for a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months. That's when you're going to start seeing those results. So that's awesome.
May I correct you?
Oh, sure.
It's not easy. You said
simple,
it's easy.
Correct. I
it's
meant simple. Thank you for the correction.
Right. So being consistent doing this every day is very hard. It is not an easy task to do this every day. You will, even if it's 2 minutes for each of those things, it's hard to be like, oh my gosh, I've done this 16 days in a row. I got to do it a 17th day. Yeah. You have to do it for the rest of your life if you want to run a business. Okay. Right. I do it at family barbecues. I do it when I'm on the phone. I do it when I'm out to dinner at my son's baseball game. And I do it when I'm sitting at my desk with actual people who are ready for this. But it has to be consistent every single day. So it's very simple. Just do those 3 things. It's not easy doing it every single day.
Yeah. Thank you for that clarification. I sometimes mix up the terms, but that's important. Thank you for joining me today, Adam. I always appreciate how much value you share in our conversations. For those of you guys listening at home, check out the links in the show notes for Adam's books, for his cohort group. We'll put that YouTube link in there as well. Adam, is there a way someone could get one of your books for free, potentially?
Yes. So actually, thanks for reminding me. So what I like to do with people, Jeffro, who I respect and I really admire the work that they're doing. I don't just come on anyone's podcast. I really want to give back to you and your community. So what we'll do is any 10 listeners for your podcast that are actual subscribers, okay, we'll give 10 books away. So you can, Jeffro, you can figure out in the show notes how they would message you to ask for that, whether it's an email or a sign up for something. But we'll send you our book, The Atomic Game Changer. That's our 9 principles for free. But really, that's what I would ask is whether or not you get a free book is make sure you subscribe to his podcast. Right, he's bringing incredible value. I've listened to many of his episodes. It's really so amazing and useful. And if you don't subscribe, you won't get notified. And that's how he can keep running his show and doing these things is if you're a listener. So I would really encourage you, if you liked what you heard here today, if you appreciate Jeffro, subscribe to his podcast and make this a better environment for all of us.
Thank you, Adam. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the generosity for the listeners too with your books. So, guys, thanks for listening. Like Adam said, if you haven't subscribed, please go do that. Believe you can do it. Behave according to your goals. Become the person you want to be. That's your takeaway, guys. Go get to work. Do a power hour. I'll see you guys back here next week for the next episode of Digital Dominance. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to the Digital Dominance Podcast. This show is brought to you by FroBro.com. FroBro is on a mission to rid the world of terrible websites, and we love helping our clients grow their businesses as big as our hair. Right now, FroBro is offering an SEO plus leads bundle where you can get warm leads every month without having to wait for the SEO to ramp up. To learn more, go to FroBroLeads.com.